Yeah,
Fantastic!
much better.
Much better without the microphone. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you everyone for making it here today. We're very proud to hold this conference again this year. We've had an up and down year. It's been a year of highs and lows. If I was being prosaic, you could say it was the best of years and the worst of years. We started off in February with Bob Petit and Sue Peters and myself taking a trip to Europe to support the Volgeld initiative in Switzerland, and we had a great time there. And we also met with some fellow monetary reform colleagues in Italy, and we also went to the Netherlands. And then, unfortunately, a few weeks after Bob returned from Europe, later on we heard the sad news that he had passed away. So that was a shock, obviously, to everyone. And so Bob had done a great job picking up the pieces after Stephen Zarlenga passed away last year. And we've had to pick up the pieces again this year. And it's taken time, but we're in a good position, and we're just going to keep going forward. So Stephen and Bob used to start off and open the conference by talking about AMI's purpose and methodology. Well, the purpose is best summed up in the tagline on our website and on a lot of our letterhead. And that is the independent study of monetary history, theory, and reform. And Stephen used to like to put emphasis on independent. And those of you who met Stephen, you would know that independent was certainly something that he was. And so was Robert Poteet, actually. They were sort of kindred spirits in that regard, and in many ways. And so I was very honoured to spend quite a bit of time with Stephen Zarlenga and Robert Poteet with helping the American Monetary Institute over the years. And I learnt a lot from both of them, and I learnt a lot from Stephen, and he always stressed to me the importance of methodology. He said, if you use the wrong methodology, you end up with the wrong result. So the methodology that AMI applied was to use the scientific method of looking at empirical evidence, which in the monetary area, because it sometimes takes quite a long time for monetary policies to work their way through into the socioeconomic field, you really have to look at history. You know, you can't look at sort of immediate quarterly results like a financial analyst might look at. You have to look at the results in history over years and decades and even centuries. And Stephen, the Lost Science of Money book at the back there, that was the result of his research of thousands of years of going through the record of monetary history to work out what worked and what didn't work. And then the next part of the methodology, after trying to apply the scientific method, is critical analysis and what Stephen called critical thinking. And he often stressed to me the importance of critical thinking, and he liked to highlight that he was at the University of Chicago during the last year, the last intake, where they ran what was called the Hutchins curriculum, where the person who headed the University of Chicago required the students in particular areas, in the areas that Stephen was studying, to read the classics and to read the originals. You go to the original source. Don't read somebody's review of the material. You have to read the original material. Go back to the original material. So Stephen applied that in his methodology for his research into the Lost Science of Money book. And then, after all of that, then you have to weigh things up. And Stephen always emphasised the importance of morality. doing what is right, what is the right thing to do, what is the best thing to do, what works for people, not for benefiting the few, but for benefiting society in general. So that's the basic methodology that AMI has always used, and as far as I'm concerned, it'll be the methodology that AMI continues to apply. And we have had some great achievements from applying that methodology. And we have had a lot of help from some great people, and including many of you here. And we've always had good advisors, and some of those will be taking part in this conference in Friday and Saturday, and so you'll be able to see them, and I'll let you know who they are. And so yes, we've been very fortunate to have a good support network and a good group of people that we can draw on to assist with advice. And it's very it's important to do that and to have that. Now, we've achieved a lot with that. Like probably the ultimate achievement after doing the research and publishing the Lost Science and Money book, about partway through that research, it took Stephen 12 years to research that book, and about halfway through, he decided, well, we need to build something to make something of this, and so the American Monetary Institute was founded in part to promote the research that Stephen was doing and to continue it, and we do want to continue that work. And the final chapter of Stephen's book was the last one he wrote. The original publication of the book was actually published in German, and it was published without the final 2 chapters. It was actually published by a Swiss publisher, but it was published in German. And we would like to have that published in German again with the final 2 chapters, because the 23rd chapter is about the European Union and the European monetary situation, so that would be very interesting for people in the EU. And the final chapter is the summation of all of this that we've learnt. What are the lessons that we've learned from history? What are the mistakes that have been made? What do we need to do so we don't repeat those mistakes? So that is in the summation in chapter 24, and that is what became the draft legislation that the American Monetary Institute initiated at the very first conference here in Chicago in 2005. And I was fortunate enough to be at that conference. I've been interested in monetary reform for nearly 10 years by that stage, and I was coming to visit the US, and I was looking into what was happening, and this looked really impressive. And then when I got there and then we were asked to review some draft legislation, I thought, wow, this is serious, because other old-time monetary reformers that I've met around the world said, you have to change the law. And even in testimony and commissions of inquiry, central bankers have said, well, if you want to do that, you have to change the law. So that's the first thing that we did at the first conference, AMI conference, was to draft legislation, to apply what we'd learned from the research that Stephen did and put it into legislative form. And then that same year, Stephen used to talk about what he called miracles, and yes, we've had some good fortune along the way. And so one of those events happened when Stephen was visiting Congress, and he went into the congressional office of Congressman Dennis Kucinich, and he was very receptive to what Stephen was talking about. And so he undertook to look at it and get his staff to work on it. And that was a long process, but ultimately at the end of 2010, the first bill was introduced at the end of that session in Congress as what they call a holder bill, and then to be reintroduced in the next session. And then it was reintroduced in 2011, and I was fortunate enough to be asked to be attached to Congressman Kucinich's office for that session of Congress to help with revising and promoting that bill in the congressional offices. And that was a great experience and a great honour for me. Now that legislation is a matter of public record. It's on the shelf, so to speak. It can be reintroduced by any member of Congress or Senate. Obviously, they'll probably change the wording a bit at the beginning, and the bill number will change, will probably change, but it's a fantastic achievement to have that there ready to go. That's as well as Stephen's book, The Lost Science of Money, which he's printed on paper that lasts for 300 years, just in case it takes that long for people to learn. We've also got the matter of public record, and I'm sure that Congress has good systems to make sure that all of their bills are well archived for any eventuality. So those are two great achievements we've made. And another thing that Stephen did, last year we celebrated Stephen's life and work, and we got a lot of great tributes from people who have been involved in the conferences here in Chicago over the years. And one was from Professor Steve Keen, and he participated in quite a few of our conferences over the years. He's quite an outspoken economist, and he said that one of the things that Stephen was a community builder. And he really was. He used to, in the early days of AMI, used to travel all around the country and go to all sorts of conferences, and he really built up a great network of contacts. And later on, we sort of concentrated on the conference and other things, but we do want to continue that outreach in the future. And as well as having our own conference or conferences, going and presenting at other conferences as well, because that's how you grow the network. So we definitely will be looking to do that. And so this conference, we've got a very interesting range of people, and I'm very, very happy that this is, we're on the upswing again. This is, we've had, our conference numbers were declining a little bit in the last few years, but this is growing again now, and we've got a significant proportion of new people who've come into our conference for the very first time. So at least a quarter of the people here are here for the first time, so please make sure you make them welcome.
Some of us new people are wondering what your name is.
Oh,
You neglected to introduce yourself.
sorry, I've been so rushed. I haven't even got my name back. Yes, my name is Jamie Walton. I'm the Interim Director of the American Monetary Institute, and I'm sure I've been in touch with pretty much all of you at some stage in the last little while, in the last couple of weeks or the last few months. As you can tell, I'm not a native American, so at the moment I'm travelling between here and the UK and New Zealand, where I'm originally from. So I do a lot of miles. So yes, and well, I'll do housekeeping at the end. That's what I was going to do at the beginning. So now this conference, for the benefit of the new people here, not all of the new people are here today, so we'll talk a bit more about the NEED Act and AMI and what we propose in the next few days when everybody is here. And but for the benefit of the new people and for people who have been here before, today and perhaps through the conference, we're going to hear some different opinions, and I think that's good. I think that's healthy. So I think it's okay for friends can disagree. Not everybody has to agree with everything. And we're going to have some time, probably towards the end of the days, to have some interaction and some panels and discussion, and try and work out, at least maybe trying to get some agreement on some of the low-hanging fruit, and then we work our way up from there. And it's a process that can be ongoing, but we're going to try and take some time to start that process, because my background is in civil engineering, and as part of that I worked in local government. And one thing I learned in local government is it's impossible to please everybody. You can try and please as many people as possible, but you won't please everybody. So we aim to please everybody, of course, but we know that it's unlikely, but we try and at least reach a core of consensus there, and then we can build from there. So the first speaker today is, well no, I'll do the housekeeping now. Yeah. Okay, so the Wi-Fi is, there's a notice up on the, for the connecting to the Wi-Fi, there's a notice up on the door. I didn't notice it, but it's there. And the restrooms are sort of that way, going straight down that corridor, not that way, but that way, and then around the corner to the left. And if you hear a loud noise coming over the PA, that means something's happening. And the staff here will muster people, but if they're busy, just proceed down to the lobby downstairs where you came in an orderly fashion, and the staff will take it from there. So don't panic, is all I'm saying. And if there's big disagreements here, don't panic about that either. It's going to be okay. We probably won't have a riot, but in case we have a riot, then just proceed down the stairs to the lobby. Okay, so now, the schedule for today was a last minute thing because one of the speakers who was going to be here had to pull out at the last minute, and then another one who I thought was going to be here is not here. So, luckily, I've been very kindly offered some people to do some presentations for us at the last minute. The one that was planned was the first one, and that is John Howell. He's from Athens in Ohio, and maybe I should introduce him as well, but I'll introduce him just before he comes on. But he's basically become an expert at explaining how the current monetary system works. He has been talking with his bank manager for years and years, trying to convince his bank manager how his bank actually operates. And it's been very difficult to get this local bank manager to see what's actually happening there. So John will tell you about that experience, and then following John's presentation, so today is like an introductory sort of day, and yeah, if the new people who aren't here today, well, hopefully you can fill them in tomorrow and the next few days when we have some breaks. So following John Howell, we have Virginia Hammond. Now, Virginia has been to a few of our conferences, and she is, well, Virginia, can I say you're a crafty woman?
Sure.
Okay, and something that Virginia also is, as well as being a crafty woman, is a storyteller. She's developing stories and as a way to reach people who aren't used to technical language, because a lot of the banking and economics and monetary area is filled with a lot of technical jargon, and economists use their own jargon, and then we monetary reformers have sort of developed our own jargon as well. And so it's sort of, it's not really something we do on purpose, it's just sort of the way it's sort of evolved over the last few hundred or so years. And so often we talk among ourselves and we know what we're talking about, but for other people it's very difficult. So a few of the sessions today are trying to break down some of that. And so after Virginia does her stories, her storytelling, what she said, that I'm allowed to say that they're grandma stories. So that's good. Everyone likes having stories from grandma, and they remember them for most of their lives, some of them. So those sorts of stories, they sort of they settle in the brain. So hopefully this will help. And then after that, we're going to have a panel discussion on terminology and definitions, because when Stephen Zarlenga used to open the conferences, or when he did presentations at the conferences, he would always emphasize that definitions are what he called the heavy artillery that are used to confuse people or to not tell them what's really going on, to sort of hide what's really going on behind this language, which is very misleading. So Stephen used to say that definitions were the heavy artillery of those who were trying to mislead society, let's say. And he would say more than, well, the purpose of misleading society was to prevent society from progressing to its full potential. And I think, well, obviously, all of you here have come here because you've thought about this. You've thought about the world and how it could be and how it is. And you've probably come to the conclusion that the monetary system has something to do with why the world is the way it is and why it's not the way it could be. So, and so definitions and terminology is a big part of the weaponry that's used to prevent and hold back the progress of society. That's what Stephen would stress, and I would concur with that, and Robert Petit concurred with that most definitely. Then we're going to have a coffee break, because I'm sure we're going to need it again. I know a lot of you have travelled a long way to come here, and I have too. So then we're going to have a short film presentation from Randy Cook. Now Randy participated in the early AMI conferences. He's a farmer, so he's very busy most of the year. He's very kindly recorded a short film presentation for us, and then some of his colleagues from his organisation he's the president of are going to do a panel discussion about what he's presented on. And I haven't actually seen the film yet, so well, hopefully it won't be too much of a surprise, but well, we'll see. And then following that panel, we have John Conroy from Chicago, and he's been. Stephen and I first met John when we used to hold free monetary seminars at Roosevelt University in the evenings, and John came along to probably one of the first ones, and he's kept in touch the whole time, and has been a long-time supporter of the AMI, and he's done a lot of his own research and a lot of his own thinking, and so he's going to present what he's been working on the last few years and thinking about. And it's very interesting actually, and it dovetails nicely, well I think it dovetails nicely into some of the themes that we're going to have later on in the conference, but I won't get ahead of myself. I'll do another little opening tomorrow and Saturday, just while everyone's getting settled to sort of start off those days. And hopefully by then you'll have a schedule for those days as well. You've just got to hear back from people from overseas and all that, and hear back from speakers and what they're actually talking about and all that sort of thing. So but it's going to be really good. I can promise you that. We've got some of the top people here, and some of the people who I invited and couldn't come. They've got very good reasons why they can't participate. One says he can't make it that day because he's speaking with Mario Draghi. Yeah. Now Mario Draghi is the governor, chairman of the European Central Bank. He's the guy who said he would do whatever it takes to save the euro. Well, we'll see. And then after John's presentation, we'll have a wrap-up panel that'll dovetail on from what John's presented, and then reflecting on what else has been presented throughout the day, and then it's a chance for everyone to sort of have a bit of a discussion, and then this conference, I'm going to try and keep it as traditional as AMI conferences usually are, and you know, last-minute things, that is a tradition of the AMI conferences. But one thing that I always wanted to do was to get out of this room at the end of the day. So we're gonna get out of here and go and have some refreshments somewhere else, rather than being stuck in this room. And so we'll be able to get a bit of fresh air and a bit of a more intimate atmosphere. So that'll be nice. That'll be nice to get out of here. And then we can be all ready for tomorrow. So I think, John, are you about ready to get lined up here? Okay, well I'll start with you. As I said, John Howell, he's been involved with AMI, or been presenting with AMI conferences for a number of years, and he's originally a physiologist, is that right, John? Yeah. And he actually had quite a breakthrough. He's a physiologist of note, or would have been, if there was a delay in publishing something. But anyway, I was rooming with John last year at the Democracy Convention in Minneapolis, and there was a bunch of us from AMI there, and we had a really good time, and run a number of presentations and panels and workshops, and so John told me a lot about himself, and now it's eluding me most of it, but anyway, he can fill you in on the background. But yes, John has become we think, one of the best presenters on explaining how the banking and monetary system currently works and what the ramifications of that are. So please give a warm welcome to John Howell.